May 27th, 1942, Prague, 10:32 in the morning. A car slows down at a bend in the road. It shouldn't. Not here. Not like this. Inside sits one of the most powerful men in Nazi Germany. No escort, no armored vehicle, no visible protection. And for some reason, he always slows down at this exact spot. Two men step off the pavement. One raises a submachine gun. It jams. The second throws a modified grenade. The explosion tears into the car. The man inside forces the door open. He draws his pistol. He tries to chase the attackers, wounded, bleeding, still advancing, and that makes no sense. Why would someone this powerful take a risk like that? Why was he even there, unprotected? His name is Reinhard Heydrich, and even inside the Nazi system, men like him were feared, not because of what he felt, because of what he didn't. 1931. He is a naval officer, disciplined, structured, until a military court of honor ends his career overnight. A broken engagement, a promise he didn't keep. The Navy calls it conduct unbecoming, the silence in the room when the verdict is read, the sound of a career snapping in two. At 27, he is finished. Most men collapse. Heydrich files it away. Within weeks, he applies to the SS. During his interview with Heinrich Himmler, he claims experience in intelligence work. There is no evidence he had any. Himmler hires him anyway, and that decision, made in a single afternoon, will quietly change how millions of people die. Heydrich doesn't rise through charisma. He doesn't inspire crowds. He builds systems, records, dossiers, surveillance. Senior Nazi officials, Göring, Ribbentrop, others, begin to find files on their personal lives appearing on Heydrich's desk. Secrets they have told no one. People don't fear Heydrich because he shouts. They fear him because he already knows. Careers collapse without explanation. Decisions change without warning. No one can point to a single order, but everyone feels it. Something is always watching. By 1939, he merges every police and intelligence force into the RSHA. The entire machinery of terror, Gestapo, death squads, spies, under one roof, under one man. Even Himmler, the man who built the SS, later confides to his intelligence chief Walter Schellenberg that Heydrich makes him uneasy, that he is never certain where he stands with him. The man who created the system, uncertain of the man he hired. That is the moment you understand what Heydrich actually is. September 1939. Poland. Behind the advancing army follow the Einsatzgruppen. Their mission, systematic mass shootings of civilians, Jews, Soviet functionaries, Roma, men, women, children, in ravines, in forests, at the edges of nameless villages. Reports flow back to Berlin, detailed, precise, numbers, locations, dates, and in those columns of figures, no one writes the word murder, not once. Heydrich reads them the way a manager reads a quarterly report. He requests adjustments, more efficiency, less chaos. He is not excited by the numbers. He is not disturbed by them. He processes them and looks for ways to improve them. But up to this point, you could still tell yourself this was war. Brutal, systematic, but still war. And then something shifts. January 20th, 1942. A villa at Wannsee, outside Berlin. 15 men around a table, all powerful, all already complicit. Heydrich chairs the meeting, not as the most ideological man in the room, but as the one who can make it work. He presents documents, 11 million names listed by country. The routes, the camps, the projected timelines, the protocol survives. It shows that nobody asks questions, nobody objects. The discussion moves to logistics almost immediately, because Heydrich had done something none of them had dared to do before. He said it out loud, clearly, calmly, in the language of administration. And once something is said that way, it begins to function like a project, not an atrocity to be committed, a process to be managed. That was his contribution. Not the hatred. Others had that. He provided the architecture. Spring 1942, Prague. Heydrich is appointed Reich Protector of Bohemia and Moravia. Resistance is crushed. Arrests. Fear. But factories run faster. Production rises. Stability returns. Not despite the violence, but alongside it. At 37, he begins to believe his own myth. The man who built a system of total surveillance now moves through Prague as if nothing can touch him. He attends the opera without bodyguards. He rides in an open car. He wants to be seen. He stops using an armored car. He finds it unnecessary. Back to that bend in the road. May 27th, 10:32 in the morning. The car slows. The grenade detonates. He chases his attackers until his strength fails. The men who did it, Josef Gabčík and Jan Kubis, had parachuted in from Britain. They had waited months for this one chance. They took it. Heydrich is taken to hospital. Surgery follows. For a moment, it looks like he will survive. Then infection sets in, quietly, systematically. June 4th, 1942. Reinhard Heydrich is dead, 38 years old. The SS gives him a state funeral. Hitler speaks. Himmler weeps at his grave. The man who was never certain where he stood with him, weeping at his coffin. In the days that follow, the Nazis liquidate the village of Lidice. Every man shot, women and children deported. The village erased from the map in reprisal for 2 men with a grenade. That is the measure of what they lost, and of what they feared losing, because what made Heydrich irreplaceable wasn't loyalty. It wasn't ideology. It was the absence of something. Many others in the Reich, even the most brutal, could still be slowed by fear, by ego, by the instinct to calculate risk, a flicker of something human that occasionally made them hesitate. Those who observed Heydrich closely described no such moments. He looked at 11 million names on a list and saw a scheduling problem. He looked at mass execution reports and saw inefficiency. A sadist can be stopped. You can appeal to his ego, his fear, his survival instinct. A man who processes other people's suffering as administrative data has no lever. There is nothing to push. That is what made him the most dangerous man in Nazi Germany. Not what he felt, what he didn't. Heydrich died because 2 men felt enough to act, and because he had stopped believing anyone would. The system he built didn't die with him. Auschwitz continued. The deportations continued. The killing continued. But he had believed something that turned out to be wrong. He believed the system he built had already made him untouchable. He was wrong, and it turns out that mattered.